Okay, we'd like to say thank you to the Highway Department for the snow plowing and public safety officers that were out in the storm over the week. All right, so I think, our first order, we don't have a public hearing. Our first order of business is a request to approve the common victualler application for ABJV Corp., doing business as the Head Town Landing Country Store at 488 Old County Road. Andrea Bizco, manager. So this property is being transferred to new owners. You can say something if you want to come up, but you don't have to. The people who are involved in this.
Yeah.
Okay, so is the paperwork all in order?
I'll move it.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the common vic for the Head Town Landing Store. Is there any discussion? Anything from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Good luck.
Good.
3A, we have a request from Beverly Bish, the Council on Aging Director, to appoint Ms. Helene Holgate as full-time principal clerk. Bev, you want to?
Hold on to the chair when you sit because they move.
Yeah.
And we'd be on the floor.
We got rid of the other trick chairs, so we had to make
Yeah,
them
so now we
tricky
had to
another
do
way.
other ones.
Welcome. So what brings you here?
Me? Helene has applied for our principal clerk position, which has been vacant since August, and we haven't had very good luck with it, but she came in and applied and really seemed like she would fit with the group that we have, the culture that we have. And she's got a background. She's worked at the Jewish home.
Fall River
the Age of
Fall River
Orange
Jewish Home, yeah.
For quite a few years. And she and her husband had their own business for a while. So she's got a good amount of background in, accounting, bookkeeping, things like that, too. And she was the front desk person at the Jewish home, and so that's a very busy spot. So I'm like, oh, you're going to fit right in here, because at the senior center, when you sit at that desk, it's like everybody's at you, so. So
Okay.
we're pleased to have her.
Jim, do we have a recommendation?
Recommend approval.
Thank
So
you.
move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Did you want to say anything else?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Have anything going on that we should know about at the COA?
The Stroke Buddies and Friends is a new support group that had started back in September, and it has just absolutely taken off. And Lisa Feidelberg Costa and I have worked together and with South Coast Hospitals Group, because Lisa had a stroke 4 years ago, and she wanted to give back to both the community that helped her at the hospital and the COA, because the COA, she only lives 2.5 miles from us, and she didn't know that we existed, so she's been getting supports and medical equipment and things like that, and she said, you guys are a godsend, I don't think people know about you. So she came in and she asked about doing this in September. In the first meeting, we had 2, and in the second meeting, we had 12. The third meeting, we had 24, and in December, we had almost 100 people at an event at White's. It's huge. Lisa and I have since met with Dr. Sacchetti and his nurse manager, Karen, for the neurology, the stroke neurology department at South Coast Hospital, and they have been given grant money from the legislature to do support stroke awareness. Not knowing, they asked, what did you do to make it so successful? Because we've tried and it's just not, it's not taken off. And I said, well, it's peer-to-peer. It's not clinical, it's not medical, and people don't need more clinical and medical. They've had enough of that. They're looking for the peer-to-peer. So it's just blossomed, and we met with Kim Willett at the new high school, and we're going to have an event on May 3rd. It's going to be the South Coast Hospitals are granting, they have grant money that they're going to give to us to do this group. And what we have is the fire department from, the fire chief from New Bedford, Fall River, Westport, and Dayton are coming in with their emergency vehicles so that people can come in and kind of sort of learn a little bit more about what the response is when people call and somebody's having a stroke. How do you call? What do you do? We're going to be doing, some of the doctors and the nurses are going to be doing some presentations during the day. We have a state police helicopter that's coming in and going to land and say, you know, because it's scary for people. They're having a stroke, they're panicked, they don't know what to do. So this is all about and getting it in the community. We wanted to do it in Westport, and we wanted to highlight also, the COA is too small to do it, but we wanted to highlight the high school and the partnership that we have. So we're real excited about that. It's really taken off. We have people from all over the place. And our goal and our hope, Lisa and I, is to be able to put together a standardized toolkit for any other COA to be able to do this and present in October at Massachusetts Councils on Aging at their annual three-day conference and present as best practices and make sure that maybe statewide they can do this, because it was easy enough for us to do. And we worked with banks and we worked with other, you know, funders to be able to do this. So a lot of the hospital groups are getting money for stroke awareness. So that's like the big thing that's sort of it's just taken up a lot of time, but I think it's well worth it. And it's a support group that doesn't exist at all. We have many other support groups, but this is a support group that's just not out there. And there's so many people right now that have had strokes, so we're working on that.
So if
we're
people want to
really
learn more about that, they should contact Council on Aging?
Yep, Council on Aging, it's going to be in May. We're going to have all kinds of advertisements and things like that. They're going to do a radio show. You know, it's going to be an event like from 9 to 4. And there's going to be, and it'll tell you each time at 9 o'clock hour what's going on, 10 o'clock hour. It's even for the community, for the kids to come in. You know how they do the touch a truck and they can get on the truck and do stuff like that. So it's that kind of event. So we're just hoping the weather's good. That's the big thing. We're hoping, you know, the kids will go on the truck if it's raining. They're not going to care anyway. So, you know, and I just don't know about the helicopter landing if it's, you know, if it's raining. But other than that,
We'll
so,
see what happens.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much for
Yeah.
sharing that. That's
thank you.
Right.
Thank you
Tomorrow.
very much.
Thank you
See
very
tomorrow.
much.
So we gotta put her on that committee?
Huh?
Well, that's next. Putting her on the committee, Lisa Feidelberg.
Yeah, so we have a request from Lisa Feidelberg Costa to be appointed to the Commission on Disability through June 30, 2027.
I'll move her.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Is she here? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request from Kristen Stinson, the town clerk, to appoint the following representatives to the Board of Registrars. You want to come forward, Chris? Isabel Kochman, Democrat, 3-year term beginning April 2025. Evelyn Mercier, Republican, effective immediately to fill the vacant term ending in April 2026. Hi.
Okay.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thanks. This is Evelyn.
Hi.
So Isabel was unable to make it, but she is asking for a reappointment, and she's been on the board for a significant amount of time, and I definitely support her continuing on the board. Evelyn is filling a vacant spot that you already appointed somebody for. We got the list of 3 names from the Republican committee, and the person was unable, once they learned more about it, they were unable to accept the position due to a conflict of interest, and so were the other people on the list. So I've been working with the Republican Town Committee for a while to find somebody who we thought was suitable, and Evelyn, who has been a poll worker but will be resigning as a poll worker in Westport in order to do this, felt like a good fit. So I don't know if you had any questions for her, but
All right, I'll move them.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? Did you want to say anything? No, good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
You got something else for her, right?
Yeah, we have something else for you,
Yeah,
but,
next page.
you're all set. That's just something for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna skip,
Thank you.
we're gonna skip down to 4D, why we have you here.
Thanks.
So we have a request from Kristen Stinson, the town clerk, to opt out of the no excuse early mail-in ballots for the April 8, 2025 annual election. I know this kind of, a few people worried when they saw it posted, so do you want to explain what this is about?
Sure. So, as you know, we've been doing mail-in early vote ballots, and people have been receiving the postcards from the state, all of that information, and then we've been doing it for each election. Because of that, when we only have an annual election like this year, we will not be sending out any of those postcards. I think there will be a couple issues. One, I think it'll cause some confusion if people just think that they are automatically going to receive a vote by mail ballot in some way. This way we can say if you're absent, if you have, if you're homebound, if there are reasons why you can't, then you can still request an absentee ballot You just can't have a no excuse mail-in early voting ballot. They're two different things.
So this was the process where postcards went out and said, hey, if
Right,
you'd like
the
a
state
mail
does
ballot,
that,
check,
right.
sign here and send
Yeah,
it
check
back.
all, right.
Right, and so people were sending them back saying that they wanted a ballot, and you were mailing them.
Right.
And then what was happening?
And then I received about 40% of them back. And for the town, that did cost 97 cents a ballot mailed, sometimes more, because if it bounced back or we had an issue, we would have to mail a ballot twice. And then people were not returning them. So that is a significant financially relevant loss, in my opinion, for the town. It was true for the primaries, and it was true for the annual election. We had a much better return rate for the presidential election. That one, well, it's a state election, but we had a much better turnout for that. And I know that the state will continue to do them for state elections. But for this election, when we have no other elections, I think that it may be wasteful because there are also other options for people. So we won't be doing in-person early voting, but you can do in-person absentee voting. So let's say you realize you're gonna be out of town next Tuesday and it's, the Thursday before, you can come in and say, I'm gonna be out of town next Tuesday. Can I just vote here today, right now? You can. It's just that we won't be setting up in the hallway and paying poll workers and doing the big early voting process. But yes, absentee ballots would still be an option for people.
You just have to contact the town
You
clerk.
just have to let me know you want them, and then I will tell you how to get that application. We either have them in person, or people can get them online, or, and it doesn't affect overseas voters or military voters or anything like that. They still have the same options they've always had.
Anybody have questions? So what is the action that you want us?
I would like you to opt out of no excuse early voting, which is something that legally has to be done. So if you don't opt out, it's fine, we can still do the early voting, but you have to legally say in a meeting that you will opt out of it.
So we're opting out just for this election?
Just this
So
election.
We have to do this
Right.
each year if we want.
Yeah, if we want to do it for the annual election next year, we can talk about that. I'm not even sure if I want to do it for the annual election next year, to be honest with you, because I think they'll be sending out those postcards, so it depends on when the state is planning on sending out postcards. So I think it's worth discussing for the annual elections. And the sooner I know about things, sometimes it might work out better because I can let people know, and then there won't be as much confusion.
Okay.
Right, any other questions? So do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to opt out of the April 8th, 2025 annual election process.
No excuse
No
early.
excuse early mail
Right.
ballots.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. All right, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Thank
That's
you.
all I have on the thing, right? Yeah.
Okay, we're back to 3D. We have a request from Denise Bouchard, Select Board Secretary, to accept her retirement after 35 years of service, effective August 31, 2025.
Motion to accept and send a nice letter. I'm sure we'll have her at a meeting, but motion to accept.
Second.
Through
Go
you.
ahead.
Jim, is there going to be any modifications needed to her job description to post, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's something we need to go over as
Okay,
we
very
move
good.
forward.
All right, and we're not gonna make her write her own letter, right?
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a 4A, request to approve engineering service contract change order for Fernsem Corp. for $75,000. You wanna explain that?
Yeah, this is Roger Fernandez, who's been kind of our owner's project rep for the water line project and the previous water sewer project up along Route 6. He's been invaluable through the process. He had an original contract that has expired, and we'd like to do a change order to keep him on board for the remainder of the project. I'd recommend approval.
Second. So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Did you mention it was out of PFAS funds, not taxation?
It'll be out of PFAS and ARPA, yes.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. We have a request from Dana Stewart, the Recreation Director, to accept a donation of $100 from Karen Weiss.
Motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a request from the Opioid Advisory Committee to use $5,000 of the opioid settlement funds for administrative costs. I just talked to Donna, but were you?
I am the designated
Okay.
hitter tonight. Yes, we're going to be doing several things. One, we're going to be administering a grants process for people to apply and seek funds. And so that's going to involve issuing an RFP, tracking RFPs. And so this would cover the cost of administrative support to the opioid settlement oversight advisory committee for 3 years.
And this is appropriate use of those funds?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
Did you move it, Craig?
I will move that.
Second.
So moved.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. For E, we have a request from Coastal Healing, Inc. to approve the settlement agreement and community host agreement. Jim, do you want to? I think we have people here from Coastal Healing. Do you want to come forward?
Yeah.
Be careful, because apparently those are trick chairs.
Great.
Can you just, I'll give you names for the record.
Yeah, I'm Phil Silverman. I'm an attorney for Coastal Healing, and this is David Bolus. He's CEO.
Thank you. Jim, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so this has been discussed by the board a couple of times. Coastal Healing, we have a existing community host agreement with them that's been in place for about 3 or 4 years. They've requested a new community host agreement consistent with the new regulations with the CCC. There's 2 parts to it. Under the old host agreement, there was some fees, yearly fees, impact fees that have not been paid. I estimate those to be about $100,000. They have requested that in lieu of the $100,000, they've agreed to pay $10,000. If it's acceptable to the board, that would be for the existing host agreement. And then the new host agreement has been reviewed by town council as well as Mr. Silverman. And we have a finished product going forward if we can settle on the existing host agreement amount.
Okay, I just want to confirm, so keep me honest if I'm here. So, the original host agreement included, impact fees that, later the Cannabis Control Commission, said we can't put in future host community agreements, right? And so, there was some question whether, it was, I don't know what the right word, whether we would be able to assess those fees given the ruling of the Cannabis Control Commission, right? So this is why, we're not just saying, please don't give us $100,000. There's some question about whether we would be able to have the $100,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And we were also provided some examples of other communities who had lost that battle to reclaim those fees from previous ones. Secondly, we also didn't entirely uphold our end of the agreement, my understanding is, because we didn't document impact. We were unable to document the impact in terms of public services responses beyond what would normally occur for a business operating on Route 6.
And can we just, do we have the number? We do still get sales tax revenue from this business, right? Do we have an amount of sales tax revenue we've had so far? That's okay if you don't have it.
Offhand, I don't know.
It's about $50,000.
Okay, yeah. All right, so is there any questions? Anything for the,
Madam Chair.
yes?
Yeah, on the sales tax, were those paid on time?
Yes, so those are paid directly to the state, and then the state reimburses the town.
Mhm.
So
But they
we've
were done
received
in-
our funds, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And we made a decision, like, gosh, it's probably been over a year ago, to hold off on assessing the community impact fee when we were trying to understand the legality. So again, it wasn't just like, you didn't send the check, we decided, you came here to us and we put it on hold in the first place, right? Right. Any questions? Anything you want to say? All right, so what are we looking for?
So there would be 2 votes. One would be to accept the settlement of $10,000 for the existing host agreement, and the second one would be to approve the new host agreement. Both have been approved and reviewed by town council.
I move the former to accept the settlement offer of $10,000 for the previous host community agreement.
Do we have a second? I'll second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, we understand this, but public participants in this meeting may not be aware, or the press, but I just want to be clear, as I understand the 100,000, you only get that if you can prove it was, I'll say worthy, or it's justified. So we didn't do that. So it's not like we're leaving money on the table, so to speak. I'm looking at Jim for an answer, I guess, but I
So
wouldn't mind.
that was Coastal Healing's argument. I think if you read the wording in there, there's some leeway as to whether or not we actually had to demonstrate those costs. Under the new CCC regulations, you do have to identify those costs.
So I'm trying to ascertain that they are, for all intents and purposes, not collectible, and although your answer seems to allow the possibility that they could be.
It's a possibility they could be. I think there's a number of cases that are working through the courts right now, and depending on how those are settled, it's possible they could owe us the money.
If it helps, just to provide some context, there's a lot of different legal arguments, and most of them, they start out as lawsuits between, a town and a company, and they've largely been settled short of an actual decision in the courts. And in those settlements, what has happened is towns that collected money have paid a lot of it back. There was a recent one that happened up in Haverhill, where the company had paid about $1 million in impact fees, and they had to give back about $700,000 of it. Or they agreed to do that. I'm going to submit it's probably because they looked at what their actual impacts were, and they realized they were not going to be able to prove it in court. So I don't want to tell you that it's a one-sided thing, that it's definitely this way. I have my views on it, council to the town has differing views on it. The bottom line is, trying to go and litigate that and figure out the answer to it would cost a heck of a lot more than I think, the town would ever collect. It's a lot more than, we can afford to pay, given the competitive nature of, the business. And that's why we proposed the settlement and paying the town $10,000, which I think is, if there are impacts, I can't imagine it actually exceeds that amount.
But I'll go back to you, Jim, but you can ask the attorneys. But there have been no recognized impacts that we have documented during this period.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is the argument. If there were none, and the police obviously, well, I'm not sure, but they haven't come forth looking for impact fees or justifying it through police action or the fire department. So if they don't exist, if they didn't happen to exist, I guess is what I'm trying to say here, have the right tense, then there's no need, they're not, it's not like they're repayable, so they're not there. You have to have something upon which to base the impact fees, and then you have to make the case. And even though your attorney is saying we could have, we didn't, so that there are none, right?
Yeah,
am I missing here?
there's two fees. There's a $25,000 yearly fee, and then there's the impact fee. And the impact fee, the wording in that, I believe, and I don't have it in front of me, but was general. It said even if we don't show them what the impacts are, they're still responsible for those fees. Now, that's changed under the new regulations with the CCC, but the old community host agreement that we have, and again, it's interpretation, right? KP Law is saying that they believe if we pushed, we'd have a good shot at getting it, and the other side says, no, you're not going to get it. So I will say that I'm not aware of any impacts, direct impacts on the community that we could say,
Yeah, that's what I'd be looking for, but I don't think they exist.
Yeah, I don't think so. I also think it's important that when we negotiated the host community agreement in the first place, we were unsure of the impact on town. It was quite controversial, people will recall. And a lot of people are afraid about the negative things that would happen in the neighborhood and traffic and things like that, and that just never materialized. It's also important to understand that this is a business with, it's not making millions and millions and millions of dollars, or we'd be seeing that in our tax revenue. And so to impose an undue burden on them just because we might win in court just seems like not good business for Westport. Is there any other?
No, I'll be voting against it because like last time, this was part of the selling point about coming into town. We had to have special town meetings to go over this again, and that's the only reason people voted for it, was because of these funds coming in to help our community.
All right, any further discussion? Anything from the public? All right, so we have a motion and a second to accept the $10,000 payment, and that closes out the first host community agreement, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Against.
So we have 3 in favor and 2 opposed. So then the second piece of business was to approve the new host community agreement, is that right?
Yes, and the new host community agreement is consistent with the one that was approved for the business next door.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move approval?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the new host community agreement. Is there any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Is that unanimous? I couldn't hear.
Yes,
Okay, this is
yes, yes,
unanimous.
yes.
I couldn't tell you just said something or not. All right, so good luck. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you all, appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next item is a request from Michael Burris, the town planner, to create a barrier beach planning committee consisting of 1 beach committee member, 1 select board member, and 3 coastal property owners. Welcome.
So really quick,
And yeah, go
I would just like to introduce Dia Wheeler. She's the assistant planner. She started at the turn of the year, and we're really happy to have her extra assistance with the work that we're doing in the planning office, and very fortunate to have her on the team.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So this is a request that is really a long time coming. This is something that we initiated last year after there were some strong southerly storms that caused a lot of damage on Westport's barrier beaches. And so the select board had asked the planning board to develop a plan for managing those barrier beaches. And so I applied to the Coastal Zone Management Grant, and we also applied the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant to get funding to develop the beach management plans. We were awarded $230,000 to prepare those plans. We've gone through the RFP process to find a consultant. We have contracted with Woods Hole Group to prepare these barrier beach management plans for East Beach, Atlantic Avenue, and Beach Avenue. And so over the last 2 weeks, we've kicked off the project with Woods Hole Group. We would like to have a committee formed to help guide some of the process, some of the planning process. And as I said, or as you had said, this would be staffed by, we're asking for someone from East Beach. I've spoken with Kevin Kurt from the East Beach Improvement Association, and he has indicated that he's interested in participating. I also will have someone from the Westport Land Conservation Trust. I do not know exactly who that person will be. Ross Moran, the executive director, would like to discuss with his board before committing someone, but they will be participating. At Atlantic Avenue, we've reached out to someone from Elephant Rock Beach Club, and so they'll be discussing with their board. Sean Leach from the Beach Committee, he will be participating on this committee. And I'm also asking for someone from the Select Board. These beach management plans will ultimately, we'll have some recommendations on how the town should be managing those barrier beaches, particularly as it, this came on the heels of some storm events, and there's some controversy with how the town approach the cleanup. And so I think it behoves to have a select board member on the committee, so you're getting some direct involvement with the planning processes, and you can come back to this board.
Thank you. So I had someone reach out to me over the weekend and wanted to know why we weren't considering like the Cherry and Webb or the West Beach area in the recommendation.
So we had only applied for, in our coastal zone management grant, in barrier beaches where the town has infrastructure, so East Beach Road, Beach Avenue, and Atlantic Avenue, that are being hit hard by these southerly storms, which was not quite the same situation in that area. We don't have funding to include those areas as well, so that's.
So the
Like
grant,
the functional
the grant is
location.
covering specific
Right,
areas.
yeah, it's specific areas. It's not all of the barrier beaches in Westport, it's just these 3 areas.
And then, I think I read that you said that, you'll be working with the, Conservation Commission, but is that why, like, is there a reason we don't have Conservation Commission on here?
It's because Chris is on the project team,
Okay,
so in the same way, we don't have a planning board member, since planning staff's on it, that's why.
okay, thank you.
Michael, you mentioned the land trust and whatnot. Is that what you're counting as coastal property owners, or are you saying adding them? When you mentioned the land trust in this part of it?
The land trust owns a number of properties on
So
Atlantic
it-
Avenue and Beach Avenue, so they could
Yeah.
actually fit under both
Yeah,
categories.
well, they're Barry Beach and inland. That's what I was concerned with.
Right.
If you just had 3 coastal property owners, they control the board.
Right.
But you're talking about somebody like the land trust that has property throughout, being one of those people?
Right, yeah,
Okay.
they,
All right.
I don't think they have property on East Beach, Road, but they do on the other two roads.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, usually when we create a committee, we don't usually appoint people, and in fact, the people weren't listed that we want to appoint, so I think it would be appropriate to create the committee if that's what we just wanted to do, but I think we'd have to appoint specific people after they've been posted on it.
Yeah, that's fine, I was just giving you a general update on where, of the folks who I've reached out to staff the committee. At this time, I only have Sean Leach and Kevin Kurt as confirmed participants.
All right, thank you.
So we need to vote on the formation?
I think so.
Jim, we
Yes,
need
to
to...
create the committee.
All right, I'll move it. I just hope the board, when we vote, consider somebody that has broad knowledge, like the land trust as one of the property owners, instead of all people that own water on the Barrier Beach.
Second.
All right, so we're forming the committee composed of 1 beach committee, 1 select board member, 3 coastal property owners, and then you're saying is when we're appointing the 3 coastal property owners, we need to make sure.
Yeah,
we're
keep in
taking
mind that maybe somebody that has a broad view across the town, something like the trust that has property throughout, not
Yeah.
just on the...
Yeah, so we'd
yeah.
encourage you to reach out to
Yeah.
the people. All right, is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. So we've created the committee. Is there anything else you need from us today? Do we have anything else on the agenda for you?
Not much.
We're here to answer any questions with the planning board chairman, Jim Whiten, about the warrant articles, but we don't have any specific items that we'd like to address during that agenda item. We're just available to answer
Okay,
questions, yeah.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. Good luck.
Okay, the next item is to review and approve warrant articles for the annual town meeting. So you want to give us like where we put this together first, like the articles that we see in front of us, where they came from?
Yeah, so the articles that you have in front of you are the standard articles that we get on a yearly basis, budgetary articles, yearly transfer, end-of-year transfer, revolving accounts. We also get articles from different departments if they have specific requests, and we have a couple of zoning articles as well. This is the first round with the select board, so they don't necessarily have to be approved tonight, but we wanted to give you an idea of what's been submitted to date and get some direction going forward. I believe you have hard copies of the draft warrant in front of you.
Yep, we do.
Yeah, so 3, 4, 5,
I think it's safe to say we
6.
start at 14.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
13.
13, those are all just the standard
Yes.
ones, and they have blanks, or like, I'm assuming the ones highlighted because that was last year's ask, or,
Yep, those are pretty much the standard articles.
Yeah.
Budgetary,
so then,
enterprise funds.
kind of, then starting with Article 14, so Article 14 is whether we should increase the room occupancy tax. Article 15 is, can you explain that one?
Yeah, this is, I'd actually like to have Sue Brayton, she is reviewing these again.
Okay, so-
Just on these are kind of procedural articles. Sue has 4 of them from the Treasurer Collector's Office.
Okay.
Mainly on payment plans and so forth, on collecting of taxes and rewording, and we're working with town council on that right now, just to see if they are necessary and if they are, if the wording's correct.
Okay. And then 16 is buying a skiff
Outboard
with the Waterways Fund. 17 is for the assessor software. 18 is for the water pollution abatement.
Well, Madam Chair, just so people don't get confused, Article 16 is motors for the boats.
Oh, sorry, motors for
It's
the.
3 outboard motors.
And then 17 is transferring money from a previous town meeting vote to the Board of Assessors for software. 18 is the water pollution abatement trust business. We can have the Board of Health come and talk about that.
Those are the septic loans, the revolving accounts for the septic loans.
Article 19 is a hazardous waste collection event. 20 is a purchase of a roll-off container and some equipment for the transfer station using transfer station funds. 21 is
One of the treasurer
one of the
articles.
treasurer collector articles. 22 is another treasurer collector article. 23 is acquiring land from the treasurer collector. 24 is an ag open space.
Yeah, so years ago, in 2006, the town appropriated, I think, 1.5 or $2 million to purchase agricultural land or open space land, and there's a balance of 83,500 left, so this would just clean the books.
Okay. 25 is an article requested by Steve Fours to prohibit elected or appointed town officials from serving on the finance committee. 26 is a change in the residency requirements. Our contracts have had residency preferences lately and not requirements, so this is just changing the bylaws for that. 27 is a change to the short-term rental permit regulations. 28 is zoning related to short-term rentals. 29 is zoning related to accessory apartments. And then 30, you got placeholder blanks for some other ones in here.
Yes, 30 to 33.
And then we have some pretty standard ones at the end here for a couple of public way for accepting the layout for Granite Post Road and for Maya Way, and then some stabilization ones. So were the departments given a deadline for submitting warrant articles?
Yeah, that deadline is come and gone, so any articles that were received by the departments are included in this.
And petition articles could come in until we close the warrant, is that right, or is there a deadline for that?
Yes, I'm not sure the exact deadline, but they can come in after that date, after the January deadline for
Right.
departments.
Okay.
We do have 2 petition articles right now for road acceptances, Granite Post Road Extension and Maya Way.
Okay. So have we posted this on the website yet?
It is not on the website yet.
Okay, so can we please, maybe we have to take out the parts that are
We'll clean it up and post it.
cleaned up a little bit and post it so people can see. And I like how you put your blanks in there so that if we renumber them, it's like the ones that are not that controversial. Okay, anybody have questions about the warrant? Anything you want to talk about?
Just say a couple probably going to warrant discussion going forward, the short-term rental, and we have the lodging, increase in the lodging rate. So as we move forward, we may want to,
Let's put those on agenda items in the meeting, yeah. And then have the treasurer collector come in.
okay?
Okay. Then the next item, so we had the bicentennial playground on here, but there is a request to pass over that, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're gonna take that at another meeting. So budget updates.
Okay.
So we're getting close on the budget. Most of the numbers are in, not all of them. We're still waiting on a couple, but I think we have enough. We have to approve the budget, or the select board by town bylaw needs to approve the budget at the next meeting, which will be on the 24th. Overall, the current financial situation or outlook for '26, I think in general as a town is better for the individual departments. Some of them are being cut or are going to be restricted based on the available funding. We have had some improvements here in town. The free cash certification was almost 3.5 million. And this is free cash for 2024, so we already made adjustments in 2025, and we made some additional adjustments in this proposed budget, which will impact free cash going forward. Stabilization accounts, general capital, and we have a special education. We're about 3.8% of our overall budget we have in stabilization. The state recommends that we have a minimum of 5%. I think after this year's budget, putting some additional money into stabilization, we should be up around 4.5%, so we are getting closer. As far as challenges, major challenges that we're looking at is we've had stimulus funds over the last 3 or 4 years. School department has had ESSA funds, and the town has been using ARPA funds, local ARPA funds, and Bristol County ARPA funds. The select board, town, finance committee have done a nice job of not using those funds for salaried positions. We've used them for one-time expenses, which makes the budget easier going forward. But we have used those funds to plug the gap on matching grants. We've, different projects throughout the town, equipment, which will no longer be available, so those will be charged to the operating budget in some manner going forward. We've also relied on free cash the last few years to balance the budget. Last year, we were up, I think, $652,000 of free cash to balance the overall budget. That is not recommended by the state. It is not, free cash is a one-time funding source, and it's difficult to carry that forward going into future years. We still have the old high school that we're still trying to resolve. That is a cost to the town in the range of $200,000 to $300,000 a year. And then inflation isn't changed a bit. It's gone up. We had a few good years. Looking back the last 3 or 4 years, and that has increased. So those are all draining a little bit on the budget. As far as revenues go, we are proposing the 2.5% tax increase as we have every year. New growth, we're estimating at about $400,000. That would be new construction on new properties here in town. Last year, or 2024, we had $736,000, but we also had solar project, which was about $90,000, and we had a couple of big building projects. $400,000, I think, is a little conservative, but we need to be a little bit conservative in these numbers. State aid, we have the preliminary numbers from the governor's budget. It still needs to go to the House, the Senate, and get resolved. We had a moderate increase. We're probably looking at about a 2.2% increase in the state numbers. State assessments, which come down from the state, which is our charter schools, school choice, mosquito control, a few other items. We actually had a slight decrease in that, so that's a positive for the town. The assessments are down a little bit. New revenue from the state, Chapter 70, which is the school funding. We took another hit again this year. We had 2 years of decent funding for new revenue, and we're back down. It almost looks like we're a minimum aid community again. The slide keeps going out here. Expenses, the pension increase this year was up 7.15%. Health insurance, right now, we're looking at increasing the budget over last year about 6.6%. But we had a little bit of room in the budget last year. We are alleviating that right now because the actual cost of the insurance is going up over 10%. So there will not be any flexibility in that count going forward. Property insurance, we're still waiting on the numbers, but that is going up as well. We also, over the past few years, we had employee contracts were about 2% pay increases. These last round of contracts have gone up to 3%, and with incentives, longevity and so forth, it's in the range of 3 to 4%. So that also taxes on the overall budget. Regional schools, we're still waiting to hear. I did speak to Diamond Business Agent, and we got some preliminary numbers, and it looks like that may hold better than we anticipated in the preliminary budget, so that's a good thing. We'll wait, we should get those numbers in the next week or two. And this is just the Chapter 70 increase that we've received from the state on a yearly basis. So this isn't, we get about, I want to say, $5 million plus in Chapter 70 funding, but this is what we get increase each year. So we were getting $30 per student for most of the years, going from 14 up to almost 23. There was 1 or 2 years where we received, I think, $60 per student. In 2024 was the first year that we were considered a minimum aid community. So we actually got increases similar to other communities around us, like Somerset, Swansea, Seekonk, where we had an increase of over $500,000. Last year, that dropped again a little bit, went down to about $346. And this year, we're back to, looks like a minimum aid community with an increase of $116,000, so.
But these are increases over, we already got the 500,000, so it's the 500, it's just increase over.
Increase, yearly increases, yeah. So with the 116, we cannot keep up with the increase in school expenses. As far as new revenue sources, we're really limited as to what we can get for new revenue sources. We have our taxes, it can only go up 2.5% a year. We do have the option of increasing the local room tax. We could increase it from the existing 4% up to 6%. Each percentage point is about $100,000. So we could generate about $200,000 if we increase it up to 6%. This includes hotels, short-term rentals as well. And then the fire department, Chief Baldwin's been working on this ambulance certified public expenditure program. There's a number of communities that are participating in this, and he's looking to join it. It's another program. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of record keeping, but there is some revenue that can be obtained from that. Whether or not we see $50,000 next year would depend on how quickly he can implement the program. But overall, I think going forward, we're estimating somewhere in the range of $50,000 to $100,000 a year by participating in this program. And we're looking to use those funds to offset a new position in the fire department. So as far as recommendations on the budget, these are some of the line item changes. The select board looking to increase the salary line item by $50,000. We're having a retirement in that department this year, and that would give us some flexibility moving forward. That would still have to be discussed with the select board at one of the upcoming meetings. The reserve fund will continue to fund at $100,000. Legal counsel recommending an increase of $15,000 to that line item. Elections registrations, proposing a $30,000 increase. Decrease. This is mainly because, we had 4 or 5 elections last year with the presidential elections. They were having an election every couple of months, so there is a savings there. The old high school, we have $150,000 in the expense account, which is being tapped onto the operating budget. In addition to that, we have property insurance, which is coming out of the operating budget, which is about $80,000 to $90,000. And we do have some previous warrant articles with some funding available or remaining that will offset the additional cost for the old high school. Property insurance, right now, we're looking at an increase of $80,000, but I haven't been able to confirm that with the MIAA yet. I'll hopefully get those numbers in the next week. Police department, they're at full staff now, or they will be. They've, I think, just appointed their last open position. They've not been at full staff for a number of years, so we've used those excess funds yearly to supplement the free cash and budgets going forward, so that will no longer be available. We're also funding 2 resource officers out of the police department budget. I know the school department had funding for one last year of $85,000, and they removed that out of their budget, and it's in the police department budget currently. Their expense They had requested an increase of about $51,000. We reduced that by $28,400. He believes he'll be able to make it work with those numbers. Fire department, they came in with a level funded expense account, not level service, but level funded, but they did request an additional firefighter paramedic, and we believe we can fund that position with the additional revenue from the funds that they're seeking. Building department, we're looking to fund the clerk from the operating budget. The clerk is already in that position. She's been funded from the revolving account, but she should be funded from the operating budget. Essentially comes from the same, the revolving account gets to a certain amount, and those excess funds go into the operating budget, so it's more of a procedural change as opposed to a impact on the budget. The animal control, there was a funding of $25,000 or $28,000 for the animal control officer part-time. That was not filled by the Board of Health last year, or they did try to fill it a couple of times, and they were not able to get a qualified candidate. It was not on the recommended list from the Board of Health, so that is not included in the recommended budget to the Select Board. Highway Department, we're looking to eliminate one of the unfilled positions. The Highway Surveyor, Mr. Gonzalez, is going to be posting or requesting before the Selectmen that he post one of the vacant positions as a laborer to assist with some of the grass cutting throughout the town, including town properties, hopefully to assist. And I don't know if we can guarantee it all the time, but police, fire, playgrounds, library, town landings. The engineer position still remains in the budget. Their expense request was reduced by $27,500. That is from their request. There's still an increase in their overall expense budget. Transfer station, we reduced the professional services account by $21,800, and that is mainly because they have a new position that covers the driving of the containers back and forth to the waste, where we were paying a private contractor to do that. So those funds were, for the most part, shifted up, not all of them, but a portion of it was shifted up to salaries. The veterans' budget had an overall decrease of about $8,000, and the OPEB currently is budgeted $175,000, but as we go forward with the budgets, we may have to reduce that amount a bit. So overall, we had a net revenue estimate increase of about $2.2 million. And what we normally do is we take fixed expenses out of that, and then we share 54% with the school department, 46% with the town. So we started out with $2.2 million. Our debt service is actually going down, so that's a positive of $183,000. Pension assessment went up $254. Health and life insurance, $315. Regional school assessments went up $165. That may come down a little bit in the next week or two. And the state assessment is an estimate, and that's a positive. Here is a negative, but it helps us about $51,000. So overall, we have about $500,000 that gets taken off that 2.2 before we split with the schools. So that leaves a balance of about 1.7 million, with the 54 going to education, 46 to the town, 927,000 would go to the school, 789, 667 would go to the town. So the school department budget, as we mentioned before, the operating budget, what was presented to town meeting by the finance committee last year, was about 22 million plus 500,000 in free cash. This is on the left-hand side. At town meeting, the voters amended the overall budget and added an additional $152,000 to the school department budget, for a total budget of $22,651,207. Proposing this year, with the split that I just talked about, we would have the 21,999 plus the 927,000 in new revenue. So the budget out of the operating budget, if we just went with the operating budget, would be about $22,926,000, which would be about $300,000 over their overall budget last year. They have about $700,000 just in employee contracts and raises. So for them to meet that would be extremely difficult. In order to boost it up a bit, one thought would be to reduce the OPED, the amount of money that we're putting into OPED, by $75,000, and put that towards the school. We could also pay off the campground with free cash, and that would free up $141,000, which would be available next year as well. So that's not like a one-time expense when we pay that off. And then, you know, unless the numbers change by some odd chance, which I don't think they're going to change much, they are going to need some free cash. And I had put $400,000 here. That gets them up to about $23,550,000, which is about $500,000 less than they've requested. But it's still a budget increase of almost $900,000. And it's a 3.9% increase. Last year, when we did the financial plan, we looked at what was sustainable, and we were in the range of about a 3.4% increase to the budgets is sustainable based on new revenue. So even the 3.9 is above that. We've had a little bit more revenue than we anticipated this year. But going forward, the standard increases for town and school budget should be somewhere in the range of 3.4 to 3.5 million.
I just want to point out that the school committee is going before the FinCom tomorrow, so they'll have a detailed conversation on the budget tomorrow at the Finance Committee.
Now, this is just a breakdown of where our expenses go, major expense categories with the percentage increases or decreases. Our big numbers are the pension assessment, the health insurance, public safety, and the school department. Those are our big numbers. And they're ranging anywhere from 4% up to just over 7%.
And the reason that public safety is high is because we added that new position funded from that other revenue source, right?
We added the new position. We also had the contract was, we had a new contract with both police and fire. Like I said, the state assessments and the debt service down the bottom there, they went down a little bit, so that helps out a bit. So overall, we're looking at about a 4.2% increase. And we're looking at a $57 million budget. We discussed the free cash last meeting, so I don't know if we have to go into a lot of detail, but I'm sorry, the CIPC recommendations. We're looking at the cemetery truck for $50,000, that'd come out of perpetual care. Cemetery expansion, $200 out of free cash, $200 out of perpetual care. I did receive an estimate today from the engineering company, and they're looking at closer to $900,000 to do the two new sections, so that's gonna have to be revisited. The IT server cluster, that just gives redundancy in our security systems here for our computers, $85,000. There's a match for a council on aging grant of $20,000. Elevator repair, I think they have $75,000 or $80,000 in a warrant article now, so this would be the additional cost to get the elevator repaired or upgraded at the council on aging. 3 police cruisers at $256,000. A fire cascade system just at the north end station for $75,000. And the school had requested security upgrades at $235,000 and improvements to the MAC playground of $325,000. We're also, CIPC also recommended, and again, this was discussed in detail at the last meeting, a new fire engine, which would be funded with $500,000 for free cash and $450,000 from the assessor's overlay. So where does that leave us with free cash, right? We started with about $3.5 million. The CIPC was 1.7. If we put $400,000 into the school budget, we pay off the campground. We had a warrant article of $15,000. Last year in the 5-year plan, there were some recommendations as to free cash. They recommended 10% be carried over each year, and then additional 5% be put into the stabilization accounts. So that leaves a balance of about $341,000. That could be eaten up very easily with the cemetery expansion. We also have a CDC grant from the federal government for infrastructure, water and sewer along Route 6, all water, which is a $978,000 grant, but there's a $250,000 match that's required. And we cannot use ARPA funds, or we cannot use the PFAS as a match. So we'd have to come up with town funds for that match. That would have to be a warrant article. We have some years before that has to be expended, but those are some other uses for that 341. It also wouldn't hurt to carry that over as well, as we're using 400,000 in free cash, possibly for the school department. If free cash is low next year, we would have the ability to offset some of those costs next year as well.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any comments or questions on the budget? Go ahead.
I asked Jim about the highway and the CIPC meeting. We talked about the highway, and today they were coming in late with a request for a truck. Did you, were you able to get some clarification on that? We didn't approve it.
I talked to Chris, he said it's very much needed. He would like to see it in the budget. That's where we are.
Yeah, but we rated it as less of a priority, and that was what the committee decided, so I looked at it as not moving forward, but I was just wondering if there was some conversations that I didn't know about.
I haven't had any more, just a general discussion. He asked if it was funded. I explained that it, it was rated number 2, it didn't get funded, and he just made the case that he'd really like it, that he could use it going forward.
Yeah, we certainly would give him an opportunity next year, next year starts really in October when we meet again to consider that request as a high priority, which we like to do with ones that didn't make the cut. Madam Chair, I had another question regarding schools. So this increase on the slide that you showed was a 3.9% increase, and that was $400,000 of free cash that would be contributed. And was it?
And reducing OPEB.
Yeah, and it was a $500,000 in free cash we gave the school last year.
Yeah, the Finance Committee recommended 500,000 at town meeting. They, from the floor, they voted
Right.
to amend that with 152,000.
All right. But we had agreed to 500,000.
The select board vote was actually 400,000, and we had funded, it was the equivalent of 500,000, but it was 400,000 from
Yeah,
free cash.
okay.
And then plus the campground, I think we
Plus the
wanted to do
campground
that.
offset
Yeah, that's
that
right.
additional.
And in the school budget you sent around to us, that was, had a lot of good information in it. They were looking for, I think, 6%, is that correct?
They were, yes, it would probably be about 6%.
So there's a considerable gap still, yeah.
They're about a $500,000 difference.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to get the bearings on that. That's all I have.
Okay, so we will finalize the budget at our next meeting. We don't have to finalize the warrant articles that quickly, but we should, any warrant articles that are going to involve money should be final before, or not final, but we should tell the FinCom about all the money articles on the 24th also, I think. All right, anything else on the budget? Anything from the public? Okay. Town administrator report.
Just a few things. We have conference table supposed to be delivered within the next week or two.
It's looking pretty good.
That does,
Good, before I disappear, put my initials on.
No, there's no writing on the brand new desk.
Diamond's been working on this. Like I said, it looks great. They've been great to work with. He expects it to be finished, finishing to be done over the next week, and hopefully by the end of the month, we'll get it delivered. We received the Mass DOT highway permit, access permit for Route 6, finally.
So is that so we can run all the way down Route 6, or is that just tying the loop in?
So I believe it's all the way down Route 6, but there's some caveats about winter work, right now it's in the island, the hours of operation we're still working on. We have the general permit. We spoke to Mass DOT. They seem to think that the amendments would be fairly minor. But the
Yeah.
permit, I believe, is for the whole Route 6.
Well, because my concern is losing Diggett. He's got like a $60 million backlog now, which he didn't have before he started the project. So if we delay him, we might not be able to get him back.
Yeah. I mean, we have some great price. We have a great price with the current contractor right now, so we do not want to lose them. The old high school, RGB, is going to be visiting the site on Friday morning. That's the architect that was hired by the Long-Term Building Committee to oversee the feasibility study for the municipal buildings. So they'll be looking at the old high school, the Council on Aging, the Town Hall Annex. They've already started reviewing some of the reports, and we'll get that project moving. Hopefully, we can get it moving quick. Fall River Waterline billing, there'll be a mediation Wednesday with the city of Fall River to see if we can resolve this. We did, a few months ago, we thought we had it resolved, but it seemed to fall through, and we should be close. So hopefully on Wednesday, we can come up with a solution. That's all I have.
So I had one thing I forgot to ask you to put in here. So when the federal government announced the freeze on federal grants, there was a little bit of a quick trying to figure out where we actually have incoming money from federal grants that we were worried might be frozen, right? And so the big one was, I want to say like $600,000 for that PFAS project, or for the water line, is being paid for. We already incurred the expense, and so we checked to see if we were gonna get the money for expenses we already incurred. So the net out of all that is that it's not frozen yet, right?
Yeah, so they came back and called us and said to get our reimbursements up within 15 minutes, and we did that. So we did get the reimbursements for the work that was done, but we hadn't been billed for the January work, which is about $700,000. We had additional funding to cover that with ARPA funding if needed, but we were notified late last week that the project can move forward, that the funding is available and can be spent.
Okay, good.
As of now.
And then, are there any other significant federal grants that we're receiving in town? I think
I
just
believe there's
the
a
Medicaid.
couple, but I don't know of any that have been held up.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else for Jim? Okay, we have the minutes of January 27th. Craig, how do they look?
They look fine, I move approval.
Was I at that one?
Second?
Yes, you were.
I was?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. We have a report on the bill warrant.
Everything's in order, you have that in your package, and $2.7 million, no surprises, and that's what we like.
All right, thank you. So we have Selectmen Liaison Committee reports and suggestions for future agenda. Let me start with you.
I don't have anything at this time. Jim kind of hit the stuff that I had.
Okay. Steve?
No, I was gonna ask the status on the table, and Jim read my mind, so I had
They
everything.
kind of hit.
Table?
Nail.
I don't think I had anything. The Climate Resilience Committee meeting that was supposed to be on the 20th has been moved to March 6th, I think is the Thursday. Just a reminder that on February 20, Offshore Wind is gonna be meeting with Vineyard Wind, is gonna come down.
I have one question for you, Shauna. What about on the broadband? Was that stuff, that work being done on moving cable, was that us?
For what?
For the broadband cable, the stuff that came down Highland Avenue? That had to be moved for that solar company?
I don't know.
So we don't have a contractor working on the cable at all?
I don't know. Does Keith, I don't know, does Keith
I
have a
believe,
fiber?
I believe the repairs were, let me double check, but my understanding is yes, the town's contractor was reinstalling those cables.
And how are we paying for that?
That's being paid through the IT budget.
Do we know how much that's gonna be?
I don't know offhand, but I can get it for you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Dick?
Nothing to report. The committees I'm on will be meeting in the very near future, including the Council on Aging tomorrow, but I have nothing else to report at the moment.
All right, thank you. Craig?
None of the committees I'm on have met since our last meeting. They're meeting in the next week or so.
Okay. So that's it. Do we have any comments or statements from the public? No? All right. We are going to go to executive session this evening. We're going to come out of executive session only to adjourn. So I will entertain a motion pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, where the chair declares an open meeting will have a detrimental effect to A, get an update from KP Law, Desjardins et al. V. Whiten et al. Land Course Kate number Miss 000387, Nicholas et al. Versus Planning Board of the Town of Westport, Land Court Case number 24, MISC 000500. Costa v. Chief of Police for Town of Westport, District Court Case number 2432 CV 000618. Town of Westport by and through its Board of Health v. White Mass Housing Court Case number 24H83 CV 00312FR Branca versus Town of Westport Historical Commission, Mass Superior Court, case number 2473 CV 00275 consolidated. B, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Town of Westport Workmen's Compensation, MIIA claim number 3342134757. C, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, veterans agent position, and the highway surveyor position, and to approve the executive session minutes of January 6, 2025.
I, Craig Dutra, move, go into executive session to discuss the items as enumerated in our published agenda.
Second, Steve Millet.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
And he saws aye.
Aye, Steve Millet.
Aye, Shawna Tease.
Richard Brewer.
I, Craig Dutra.
We are in executive session.